I will not only abide with you, I'll abide in you. That's the truth of God's love for mankind. God doesn't come to make man better. God comes to make man blessed. Much different. Okay? So those are all the aspects of the Noahic covenant. All right. Let's go to the next one. The next one would be what? Abrahamic. Abrahamic. Now, the Abrahamic covenant is the most important covenant to date. Far superior to Noah's covenant. Far superior to the Adamic covenant. This one is now revelation as well as relationship. The others were revelational. You found out more things, but this is now relationship. The Abrahamic covenant is the most important covenant to date. Okay? Let's look at it. Genesis chapter 15. Genesis chapter 15. Promise from God. God gives him land. Now, why is that important? What's the first thing God told Abraham to do? Leave home. All of your ancestral heritage and lineage that you got from Terah, your father, you know what? Forget all that. I'm going to take you to a land that I'll show you. I'll take you to the land and show you. What was the only condition that God gave him? Well, no. Leave father, mother, family. You know, he took his father with him for a while. Sat back to plan of God in his life for years. He also took his knuckle-headed nephew Lot with him. Okay? Look at Genesis 13. And in Lot we see the carnal Christian. In Lot we see the carnal Christian. I'm going to give you some example of that. In Lot we see the look at sin. Look what it says in verse number 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain that was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. The look of sin. But then look at the lie of sin. Like the land of, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest to Zochar. He said, man, that looks like the Garden of Eden. Hey, Lot, have you ever seen the Garden of Eden? No, that's the lie of sin. How many times people who entice you to sin saying, you've never had anything like this before. And this is the greatest thing in the world. Really? That's the lie of sin. Is it ever going to get any better? And you've never had anything like it. People told me, Dwight, have you tasted kumluk chuk? No, what is kumluk chuk? Man, it's the greatest food in the world. Then you eat it. What is it? Chilled monkey dung. Okay, wait a minute. That's the lie of sin. Okay? Then notice it on up. Look at the next thing. Verse 11. Then Lot chose all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves one to the other. That's the life of sin. Separating yourself from other believers. Something's wrong when you can't hang out with God's people. When you break fellowship with everyone you've known, you've gotten so spiritual that you don't need Christians anymore. Something wrong. You slip into the life of sin. The life of sin. Now look at the next thing. The longing for sin. It says in verse 12, Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. Lot dwelled in the plains, in the city of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. He'd look at something. Man, I wish I could get a house down in Sodom. The longing of sin. How many Christians you know said, man, I wish I could. I know that guy's a drug dealer, but I wish I had a car like his, man. And the bling bling and all that. That's cool. Right. It's the longing for sin. Notice the next thing. Verse number 13. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. The men of Sodom were wicked. You know what that is? The love of sin. It doesn't just start with the love of sin. First he looked. They lied to him. It became part of his lifestyle. He longed for it. And he loved it. Next time you see Lot, he's mayor of the city. He sat in the gate. He determined who went and who left. He took the tribute. He took the taxes. He got the import embargo taxes. He did everything with the city's commerce. He had to go through Lot. Come on. Why? He's not loving sin. Let me show you something. Go to a couple of chapters over and look at chapter 19. Verse 12. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou any besides son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of the city is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Lot went out and spake to his son-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, get up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. He said, have you lost your mind? This is Sodom. You know what it is to get a house downtown Sodom? You realize what, in a couple of years, the value here will triple. Next verse. And when the morning arose, the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in iniquity of the city. And notice, and while he lingered, he just said, man, I love this place. Notice what they did. The men laid hold upon his hand and upon the hand of his wife and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. That's a great verse. You underline that. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they brought him forth abroad, he said, escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou on the plain, escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed. Get out. Don't look. Don't linger. Get out. Look what happened. In verse number 18, and the Lord said unto them, oh, not so, my Lord, but behold, now thy servant is found grace in thy sight, thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me, and saved my life. I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. Look, you idiot. You're about to die now. Get out. Run to the mountain. What about the wild dogs? Look, if we kept you to get you out of this, don't you think we're going to keep you in the mountain? You know how many people give so many excuses about God can't be God? God wants to save your life, and you say, well, God, if I do this, the people will hurt me. Listen, if I'm the same God who's rescuing you, don't you think I'm the same God that can protect you? But the disconnect is, I love sin. Going on. Verse number 22. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything that thou come hither. Therefore the name of the city is called Zoar. The sun was risen on the earth when Lot entered the Zoar, and the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the city which grew upon the ground. And his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Now, what things do you know about salt? Why a pillar of salt? She looked back and became a pillar of salt. You know, there are 16 supporting cultures that document this story. If you were to go to that area now, they'll tell you, and there's an ancient word, it's an Eber, the language of Eber, that says place of salt. And the pillar of salt was not one where it was the height of her body. They said that the pillar of salt stood 60, 70 feet in the air. So everybody would know. Salt represents several things. It's bitterness to water. If water is salty, you can't drink it. It's bitterness to the ground because you can't grow anything. It's bitterness. And that's what it is. She was bitter against the Lord for what he had done to Sodom. And that's why God said she's got to die. What did Jesus say about the fellow who has his hand to the plow? And looking back, he's not fit for the kingdom. Because if you're looking back, you still love your sin. You still love your sin. Okay, let's go back. I'm sorry, I took a little before Abraham covenant. First thing was God was giving him the land. What happened? Go back to chapter 13 of Genesis. Abraham has Lot with him, and God says, I can't do anything until you obey me. The whole point is God is not going to take most of your obedience. He wants all of your obedience. So because of the fact that he had Lot with him, even though he had separated from his father, he still set back the plan of God 13 years in his life. 13 years in his life because Lot was with him. Notice what happens the moment Lot leaves. Look what it says in verse number 11. Then Lot chose them all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain and pitched it toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look to the place where thou art, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee I will give it unto thy seed forever. This is what happened. God says, I've got to make something happen. So God causes strife between Abraham's cattlemen and Lot's cattlemen. And finally Abraham said, look, I'm fed up. Lot, what do you want? Just go somewhere. Just get out of my face. He said, you choose what you want, and I'll take the rest. Okay, Lot says, I'll take all of this. Abraham said, fine. And then God says, Abraham, this is it. This is it? This is the promised land? Yeah, Abraham, it's not a place. It's obedience. I'm God. I can make any place the promised. I can make the middle of the ocean the promised land. The promised land is not some geographical location that just happens to be great. It's where you plan to obey me, I will bless you. I'm not trying to take you to a place physically. I'm trying to take you to a place spiritually. In blessing, I will bless you. I just want you to obey me. I've known so many women who went hither, thither, and yon looking for a husband. And God says, why don't you trust me? Next thing you know, they look at the guy next to him. Him, Lord? Yeah. Her Merkel here is your husband. Well, Lord, why did it take so long? I'm asking you that. Why did it take so long? Why don't you just obey me and trust me? Trust me. When you go looking for a husband, you know what you get? A bum. You let God do the looking. He has the one he had prepared for you. You know what God did? He caused all the animals to pass before Adam. And you know what Adam noticed? Giraffe had somebody. The rhinoceros had somebody. The hippopotamus had somebody. Mosquitoes had somebody. And God says, you know what? You learned your lesson. If I don't give you a mate, you'll never find one. And God had to put man to sleep and realized that there had to be someone like him. Like him. That's what happens. You got to do it God's way. You want God's blessing, do it God's way. God provides. Don't do it on your own. God provides. All right. Enough of the selling.